So welcome to the session. It's a session on using photos and data, and it's by Pip Arnold. Many of you will know Pip already, so may not need much of an introduction, but she's a real treasure to us in Auckland and statistics education in New Zealand, and probably more internationally than that. And she's from Karekare Education as the company she has founded and works for. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Pip, and we're really interested in what she's got.
Kia ora, Jared. No, I need you to sort. There we go.
Yep, you're on.
All right. Okay. So let me. Don't even know how many people we've got. 24. Awesome. Hey, look, lovely to see everyone this morning. And well, actually, it's now just this afternoon. And I don't know how this is going to go, but what we're going to do, you would probably take 3 or 4 sessions in your class, and we're going to try and do it in 40 minutes. All right. So I just want you to be really aware that I've possibly done a lot of pre-thinking that you would do with your class, if that makes sense. And I'll try and push that out to you when that comes around. So let me just open the chat so that's on the side. All right, so we're going to, we're looking at, I'm not you, Jared. All right, so we're looking at some ideas that I've been working on with some friends from the States, and I will make sure these links are available somewhere at some point. And if I'm good, I'll remember to put them in the chat, but for now. So Letitia and Sherry and I wrote a paper for the Harvard Data Science Review on the GAZE 2 document, which I was one of the authors of. And we wrote our paper about using photographs as data sources to tell stories. But to do the paper, we realized we needed some lesson plans that we could refer back to. And so what happened was we decided that we'd take the same prompt, but all 3 of us did really different things with the same prompt. All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you some of the stuff that we did about mostly just using the photograph as the source that we got the data from, but I've adapted it to the situation we've got today. The prompt we were working with was working with a class about their favorite outdoor spaces. And we were also thinking about students using their data roll or their camera roll in their phone. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that first, and then we can go on. And so the big thing about using student photographs, and we've done a lot of talking about this, is about the ethics of the situation. And so I just want us to think a little bit about ethics up front, although hopefully what I'm doing today, we've missed the idea of ethics, hopefully won't be an issue, but if we were working with students and wanting to use their photos, we need to think about these things. So ethics is something, and obviously not just with photographs, so anything we're doing with students and collecting data from them, we should be thinking about ethics. But in particular, when we start to pose our statistical investigative questions and when we are collecting or considering data, especially if we're collecting it from the class, but even if they're thinking about collecting their own data from other people. And I'm, as many of you maybe know or not know, I'm busy writing a book. This is what it looks like in draft. But in the book, I've got some stuff on ethics. And one of the things that I've done in my research is that really it's that idea that we're wanting to do good, but also we want to do no harm. And sometimes we do harm without even realizing it. And I think for years, probably as teachers, we've just blindly taken students' data and not really thought about the ethics of it. Anyway, there's 6 ideas for what we can think about for ethical practice. And I think informed and voluntary consent is pretty key. And that's something we need to be aware of in our classroom if we are starting to ask students for data. Privacy and confidentiality is also another key one, and being socially and culturally sensitive to participants' cultural and religious perspectives. And for example, one of the things that we did in the work we were doing was looking at food. And, you know, students might look at somebody else's favorite food and think, yuck. And Letitia had this lovely saying, as she says, when she works with kids, she talks about, don't yuck somebody else's yum. And I thought that was a really nice thing to think about. you know, so they might see something instead of going yuck and it's somebody else's favorite, they should think about that. There are lots of resources around about ethics now. So this is just one we found, Data Ethics Canvas, and these slides will be available for you to click on and link to anything that's in here once Robin puts everything up online. And just a couple of the circles just blown out. These are some of the questions that, you know, companies use, but they might also be useful when we're talking about ethics with kids. And then there's just a couple more. When we think about how we can deal with ethics, I think about interrogative questions we can ask of either our investigative questions or our survey questions in particular. And so a question that I think works quite well is just to think about the question or the area and saying, is this something that students in our class would be happy to share information with everyone? All right, and we know the classic is like, you don't do weight, but there could be other things too that we need to just say, actually, if somebody asked me this question, would I be happy to share it? If the kids think about that from a personal perspective, and then to think about it from a more wider perspective. And then even if they think the idea is okay, and then they write their survey question, it's not just are they happy to answer the question, but to answer it honestly. And we need to think about why answering it honestly might be important in data collection. So I might say, yes, I'll answer that question, but I'm going to tell you, I was going to make it up, like I'm going to say I'm a Jedi Knight, which we know happens. And then what's the impact of our data process that we're going through? All right, so that I'm just going to just leave that there, just remind you though about privacy and confidentiality. If you look at the census at school, there's been some big changes to what happens there. And a lot of that is around privacy and reducing identifiability of individual students in the class with the data teachers get back. Okay. All right, so that was my little intro to if you were doing it with students, but today we're going to just work with some photos from Pixabay. All right, so I spent some time last night thinking about, what would be interesting to do as a theme in Pixabay. I've chosen Pixabay because they're free. And what I did in the end was I just went, New Zealand. So I put New Zealand in as my search topic. And how many have we got? I'm just going to go back. Got 24 people. Okay, I've got plenty of pictures. So all I did was I put New Zealand in, and I've got all of these pictures here, except for this one with the aeroplane. All of these pictures are available for us to work with today. And in a moment, you'll get to choose a picture. And if somebody else has taken that picture, you'll have to choose another picture. But we're going to just work with these photographs as our data sources. So here's an example. This is the first photo that comes up. And the question I want to ask you is, what information can we get from Pixabay? And so if I click on that photo and go into it, we can see that there's some words coming up here. We've got somebody who took the photo. We've got this little thumbs up symbol. And if I scroll down, I've got some comments about it. And then I've got some information about the image type, the size, when it was published, how many views and how many downloads. So already, before we go too far, we've got some data we can work with. And, you know, people like Anna Ferguson have already set it up so you can download all this stuff. But for the purpose of what we're doing today, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do this a little bit manually. All right, so that's without going too far, we can already get some data about this photo. All right, so I've made a little bit of an executive decision, and we're going to go in and collect that data in a moment where I'm going to just set it all up. And even though I'm going to do huge cognitive overload listening to Reeves, I do have an instruction set of slides you're going to work with in a minute. All right, so we can get that information, the image type. The resolution, the first number is the width, the second number is the height. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong, around the other way. Views, downloads, likes, and comments. So we'll do that. Now, another thing we can do is we can look at the photograph and go, what percentage of the photograph is? All right, so I don't know if I look at these, what we could do colors, but maybe what we might do is sky I don't know, what do you think? Does Sky seem like it might be an interesting thing to just quickly work out the percentage of the photo? Shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so one of the things that we can do to get the percentage is we can use this activity called the quadrant method, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. And we're going to just change this to say what percentage of your photo is Sky. All right, and we're going to use this thing called the grid overlay method, which I'm going to just show you. Let me go through. So this is what your slide will look like, except the dog. That's my dog. But what we've got is a quick little note here on the side of how you do it. And I'm just going to go through that now, and you'll get all of this information in the slide you're going to get. So we get our photo, we have it on our slide, or we put it on our slide. We resize it. Now, this is one of the things that I would do with my students. I would get them to work out these rules, but we worked it out because, we don't have time to work it out. So in this, and the reason we have to resize it is because tables won't go small enough in Google Slides. So it says here, make sure the smallest dimension is at least 10.7. So see how this one's 7.8? It's too small. And I'm going to select lock aspect ratio, all in the slides. I resize it. So see how that's now 10.7, and it's automatically resized to be consistently with one another. That's what the lock aspect ratio is. All right, and then what we do is we note these dimensions because we're going to use these dimensions with our table. We insert a table, a 10 by 10. And we can talk about why we might use a 10 by 10 table. And sometimes if our photos are quite narrow, either this way or that way, you might want to use a 5 by 10. And we can talk about why 5 by 10 would be our choice and maybe not 6 by 10. All right, and so here we can see that my table dimensions are bigger than my photo dimensions. So I'm going to make the table dimensions the same. Notice I don't have the lock aspect ratio on. And then I just drag and drop the table over the photo, and I can change the color if I want to. And so now if I was going to count what percentage of my photo was Sky, I'd have to look up here. I've got, a little bit of that one, and that one. So you might have to have a conversation with your kids about how we measure half squares and everything like that. Okay, so that's one. And then you can just go to your slide, and all those instructions are there, but they're just in brief. All right, so you can go back to the thing. Okay, second thing. So sorry, it's going to be lots of ideas, and then you can go through it slowly and ask me questions. So look at my picture. What color is the most dominant when you look at it? Throw your answer in the chat. What's the most dominant color you see? So I've got a green, brown. Cool. All right, so with your photo, I'm going to get you to have a guess of what you think the dominant colors of your photo. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a process whereby we actually find out what the color is in our photo. All right, so let me just get out of here. So yes, I'm going to go to the tool. There's this really cool tool. It's called an image analyzer. And you can see here I've got my image in it, but let's have a look at how we do that. So I'm going to go into my picture. I click free download it. I have to save it somewhere, so I'm going to save it there. Now, the thing that's really nice is see how this is sitting down the bottom here in my window. Some of you might have that. If I now go back to my image tool, which I've opened up, I can simply drag and drop. Not did it for me last night. I want to do it for me today. Drag and drop. No, not going to do it today. Okay. Now I don't know where I've saved it. Anyway, you choose your file, find out where it is. let me go. This would be, if I've done it right, groups, AMA, hopefully. Look at that. So I select my image and then it was already there, but you can see what happens is it brings up the colors. All right, so these are the colors. So 18% of my image is this sort of browny green color, okay? And then the next thing we want to do is once we've done that is we're going to copy and paste it into our slide, but we've got to find these things called hex color names. So there's this little tool called the hex tool, and this is the hex tool here. And we simply type the number in here. So this was the last one I did, Karaka. All right, so you type the number in here from your, this. So say I want to do this one down here, this white one, hash F0, F0. I type it in, hash F0, 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 and enter. And then it tells me that color is called white smoke. All right, so that's that one there. And then I had a crazy idea that we could look at longitude and latitude. This was my crazy idea last night, Jared, that I was telling you about. So if we go to our photograph, we can find our person. So my photograph, remember we had this valley one. If I click on that person, it tells me where they're from. And then I can go into, I can just Google search it. So I just went Luxembourg coordinates, and here they are here, right? We want to use the simple standard coordinates. All right, so that all sounds a bit confusing, but that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to put the link to that you need. So there's my links. I'm going to give you the link to the instruction slides first. I'm going to put that in the chat. Where's my chat? Okay, there you go. This is, oh no, silly girl. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. Copy link. Okay, so those are the instruction slides. And now I'll give you another link, which is to the where you're going to put your information. So I'll stop sharing in a minute. So the instruction slides, when you get to them, just go through how to do the grid overlay method, how to do the color, and then how to do the longitude and latitude. That's all in the instruction slides. And in here, this is all the photos, and I've claimed the first one, but for each photo following it is the data to collect from Pixabay, where you do your grid thing and where you do your color of your photos. But I'll just put a question, the longitude and latitude, we'll just do that straight into the form, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing. I know that was just like huge download of all sorts of ideas, but let's take 10 minutes and just ask questions. If you're not sure what to do, just unmute, ask me a question, but go on and grab a picture and see how much of that you can do, all right? And just once your name's on a photograph, it's your photograph, all right? And some people are gonna have to choose another one. So you can scroll through, or each photo's got the photo and then 3 slides. All right, so pick your favorite one, put your name on it, and it's yours. Oh, and you'll link to your photos in your slide as well.
I've chosen Cathedral Cove. Love Cathedral Cove.
Nice. If I can see where you're working, I'm putting a longitude and latitude slide on that you can use if you want. And I may not have put them all in at the moment, but I'll try and get them by you. And if I haven't got to use what's now slide 7 is a blank one you can take. You can have a look at my slide 6. Let's say 2 more minutes. Oh, 3 more minutes. Marla, can you just screen share to show me your picture? I just can't find it. Okay, that's all good. I got your message. Can I get people, regardless of how far they're through filling in the form, just to go in and submit? And then I'm going to give you a link to go and have a little play on Codap, and then I'll get the data into Codap and you can have a play with our data. Even if we've only got a few, it would be great. So regardless of where you are, can you just go next and then get to submit? That would be great. And I'm going to put in the chat a link to a Codap document that's on earthquakes in New Zealand. You can just have a little bit of a play with the mapping tool in Codap. So if you have gone into the documents, one of the key things is if you click on map, because we've got this thing called longitude and latitude in here, if I take something such as the depth of the earthquake and I put it on there, it gives us a map with a code showing.
This one I chose too, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so you can have a bit of a play. So you can make multiple maps and put multiple variables on there. All right, so if you want to have a little play with that, and I'll just get the data we've got downloaded and you can then have a play with it. So if you're still out there and can submit,
How much have you got so far, Pip?
I've got 4. It'd be nice to get a couple more if we could, but no drama if you haven't got far enough into it. Okay, I'll do this, what I've got.
So a couple of people have asked how they submit. So are you guys on the Google form?
Oh. Let's not worry for now. I'll show you what we can get. And actually, I'll just share my screen again. So those people who might be doing this with these students. So I can download the sheet. I'm going to download it as a CSV. And I have to save it. So I'll save it again. And on my computer, you'll see it's coming here down the bottom. Now, if I go into Codap, Codap, now it's just got to scan it, make sure it's safe. If I launch Codap, there are videos around to help you. So you don't need to do this, but I'll just show you how quickly I can share the data with you. I'm going to create a new document. I can click and drag and drop that CSV file into my Codap document. I save it. So I'll just save it there. Photo, save. And now I'm going to get a sharing link. It's going slow because you're all watching me. I copy the link, I close, I now go into chat. Where's the chat? Chat, where's chat? Chat. Paste. Okay, now you should all be able to go in and see that doc. And I'm going to stop sharing so you can open it. All right, so we've put the data in, we've downloaded it, and we can now go and make some graphs if we want. For example, we could graph the resolution widths versus the resolution heights.
It's quite cool. The colors come through.
Yeah, the colors come through. So if you graph something like the percentage of sky, for example, where will we put that in? Percentage of sky. I haven't changed the name. And then you put the color of your dominant, you click and drag and drop the color over the top. It actually colors the dots. Let me share my screen so that you, I'm not just. So we had, I want to make a graph of the quadrant that was sky. That's there. And say I want to get the color of the first color, I can just drag and drop it into the middle. And then you can see that my dots have been colored by the colors. And we don't have a lot, but the map, you can see there, those are the two identified photos. So it's already put them on the place that they were taken. Now, a big learning that I did is that if you want to use longitude and latitude, you have to make sure the name is only longitude and latitude, no instructions with it. So that's a learning. Although Switzerland, I'm wondering if these are the other way around. 2, 3. There we go. Okay, we just got them in the wrong way. So see how we've got Switzerland. So for example, if I wanted to look at the percentage that was sky, see how it's now coloured, these dots. You can hardly see this one here by the percentage that's sky. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing. We just do a little bit of a wrap up. So I know there was lots in there, and I will make sure all those links to all those documents are in the slides when you get them. But what I wanted to show you was that it's possible to just take photos and collect data and start to do some exploring. And, you know, we didn't even start thinking about what other questions we could ask of those photos. Like we could have said, what's the photograph about? So there's lots of stuff we could just looked at the photo and asked other survey questions. I really focused on just data we could get from the picture pretty quickly. And that idea of doing the grid overlay and sort of doing counts, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes in there, like estimation and understanding percentages and lots of other connections to other parts of the maths curriculum. So all I'm going to say is ask your kids, because they're probably actually more au fait at getting stuff out of photos than what we are, or out of things, you know, through different tools on the internet. But there is lots of potential to just go and explore. We're not doing sampled population, none of that stuff, we're just exploring some data. And Pixabay is a great place to go to because they are freely available. And hopefully there's no ethics involved. So that was the thing for me, was why I've sort of started looking at things like Pixabay perhaps, rather than getting them to provide their own. I also did all the pre-prep because we never would have had time to go and find our photos, but I would not do that in a class. I wouldn't even have made the tables up. I would do that as all part of their learning about how they collect data and everything like that. But hopefully it's given you some ideas about some stuff you can go and try with kids or with adults. It doesn't have to be restricted to students, I think we quite enjoy playing as well. Okay.
Thank you, Pip. Yeah, pretty interesting. I don't know if it's just because I signed up for your workshop, but I ended up doing something with photos just the other day. And so now I've seen way more cool things that I could do with photos. And